Keep yourself in the loop of everything football. Listen to Alex and Jeremiah on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello there, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Alex, always and forever here.
Dedicated to college and NFL football. The latest football news on and off the field. NFL draft trade rumors. We've got you covered from the NFL, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything else in between. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for choosing the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we talk the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football from the latest science issues, breakout stars, and all the news in between. As always, I am Alex.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Jeremiah.
What's going on, guys? We got a pretty big day ahead of us here. We're talking football. We have the final drive to talk about. We have college football to talk about. And we have NFL Thursday night football to talk about as well. What are your thoughts heading into today? What kind of day are you going to have today, Jeremiah? Are you going to take it by the reins? What about you, Anthony? What's going on, guys?
I am ready for all football today. I'm ready for Miami. I'm ready for Chicago and Green Bay. I'm ready for all of that.
I'm ready to take it all in.
I know you're a Dolphins fan, Anthony.
You really gotta not say those words in that sentence that way. But what?
Are you? I know you're a Dolphins fan. Are you also? You're also a Miami,
also
right,
Miami
fan?
Hurricanes, yeah.
Yeah, you're also a Hurricanes fan. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Jeremiah is not. He's pretty fond of the U. He certainly likes saying it. He is a fan of the U. He has told me in the past.
Well, I'm not a huge fan.
No, I know, but
like
you
Anthony is, but
yeah.
I like that. I like the culture
them.
that they had there.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate them for what they are. We'll talk about them a little bit. We'll talk about them, and of course we have the final drive to end the show, in which each of us have one little bit of news that was, one could say slipped through the cracks, was just out of the outstretched hands, out of the reach of the catch. We'll talk about that at the end of the show, but first we're going to get into Thursday Night Football. The Chicago Bears are heading to Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers, the 3-2 Green Bay Packers, who are 2-1 at home. The Chicago Bears 1-5 and currently winless on the road. So this one's an interesting game. The Green Bay Packers have looked kind of middle ground this entire year. The record is middle ground as well. Aaron Rodgers has not looked great. In fact, Brian Hoyer has more yards than he does currently. 4 less touchdowns, but he has yet to throw an interception, so you look at it that way. The offense for the Packers has looked weird this entire year. It hasn't quite been its dominating self. I would like to see where Rodgers stands among other quarterbacks in the league currently through a lot of his stats. You have a lot of injuries, whether it's the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball, that's really hankering this team. And then you have the Bears, who lost Jay Cutler, but actually have seemed to be playing better since Jay Cutler went down. Not a lot of injuries for them. They're just not a very good team. So I'll throw it to Jeremiah first and see what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I kind of talked about it a little bit yesterday with, A. Lacy going to be out for this game, and I'm going to say it again. I think Ty Montgomery is going to have a huge game for the Packers. I think he's going to be the X factor in this game. He's going to get some touches at the running back position, possibly get some snaps as the third receiver and 3 receiver sets. Because remember, Davante Adams, I think he's going to be out for this game. He's questionable.
I can look at the injury report right now. For the Packers, you have Davante Adams questionable, and then Abbrederis is out. Demaris Randall and Quentin Rollins are both currently out. Chris Banjo, their safety, out, and Lacy is ruled out as well.
Yeah, so Ty Montgomery is going to get playing time at the receiver position and running back position because Jared Abbrederis was playing. Abbrederis?
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, okay. He was playing in third receiver sets as well when Davante Adams left Sunday's game against the Cowboys. So I do expect him to have a real good game, and I'm talking about Ty Montgomery here. And this offense for the Green Bay Packers needs to get back on track. This is not the same Packers offense we're accustomed to seeing. Aaron Rodgers his stats look good, but for some reason it doesn't look good when they're playing on the field. It just doesn't look the same. Like, this team, they couldn't get anything going against the Cowboys on Sunday, not at home. But they are playing the Bears. This is a good game for them to get back on track.
Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing. It's a game for them to really take and kind of maybe make something out of. Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, so you talked about how Aaron Rodgers basically hasn't looked the same, and this year he got Jordy Nelson back. You were hoping maybe with that thing he could actually kind of look like Aaron Rodgers from a few years ago. You know, Jordy Nelson is coming off of the torn ACL, so that probably will take a little bit of time just for him to kind of feel 100% like, you know, no offense to Jordy Nelson, he's not Adrian Peterson who can just kind of like flip the switch and all of a sudden he's back. You know, he had 101 yards against the Detroit Lions, but in 2 games he didn't even get 40 yards receiving, so he's still kind of feeling everything out. He does have 5 touchdowns, but you're right, it hasn't looked the same with Aaron Rodgers. You know, they struggled in a couple of games this year. They struggled, like you said, last week when they were playing the Dallas Cowboys. They struggled against the Vikings. To be fair, you're going to struggle a lot against the Minnesota Vikings. But you have the division game. You got the Bears and Packers in Lambeau Field, which helps out the Packers because with these Thursday night games, they're all kind of lousy in the sense of, you know, you don't give the team a full week to have your body heal. So you kind of go with the home team, which was the case last week. Who was the Thursday night game?
On last week?
Yeah,
It was Denver Broncos
and San Diego Chargers.
San Diego Chargers. That's that helped the Chargers because the Chargers were in San Diego. We all thought, the Broncos are going to wax them, but it turned out being at home, you kind of have that advantage going in. The Packers are already a better team than the Bears in general. The Bears basically haven't looked good all season. Brian Hoyer is an upgrade from Jay Cutler, just in the sense of Brian Hoyer can throw for a lot of yards, and he doesn't really make those, dumb passes. Like, he's 6 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, so he's doing just enough for them to possibly win a game. It's just everybody around him, especially on the defensive side, isn't doing well. They're in the bottom half as far as rushing yards allowed. Actually, they're 10th in passing yards allowed, so they're actually okay in that. But, the fact that it's the Packers don't have Eddie Lacy, they're kind of relying on, like I said, either Ty Montgomery or Niall Davis, who they brought in earlier this week.
Don't forget about Don Jackson there.
They do have possibly Don Jackson to come in. So, it's looking...
That's Alex's boy over there.
That is. It's looking good, at least, for the Green Bay Packers to at least they have some advantages going into the game.
Yeah, and they're playing the Chicago Bears, and for some reason this Bears team looks a little bit better with Brian Hoyer at quarterback. He has got Corey Meredith involved in this game. I didn't know who he was like 3 weeks ago. Now he's relevant fantasy player. Cameron? What did I say?
Corey.
Did I say Corey? Or Cameron Meredith? See, I don't even remember his name. He just came out of blue like that.
Dang, man. You do him like that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But he has been playing really good. He's been Brian Hoyer's favorite target. Alshon Jeffrey, he's been
playing well.
He's been playing well. He got off kind of a slow start. He's been kind of very inconsistent, so to speak. He's not having that big year I thought he would have. And, Jordan Howard, he looks like he's going to be the number 1 back for the rest of the season. Even if Jeremy Langford comes back, because Langford couldn't even run the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, he was hurt really quickly.
Yeah, he got hurt really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, he was hurt in this one like you said, really quickly. He didn't really get quite the same going this year as he might have had last year. Okay, well, let's do this. Who do you guys have winning this one? I'll start with Anthony.
Yeah.
And give me a little maybe reason why also.
Yeah, so Packers, again, the home field advantage thing for them. You will have Jordan Howard, who probably will have a good game, outside of against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You've seen Jordan Howard kind of do some things that are impressive, back-to-back 100-yard games, but at the same time, home field, Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, just even a minor contribution from Niall Davis, give him like 60 yards or something like that. Maybe get some return stats because it does have some kick returning abilities as well. Yeah, I would go with the Packers, not by like a blowout or anything else like that. Call it like 21 to 10 or something, 21-14, something like that.
Okay, and then Jeremiah.
I'm going to go with the Packers because it is at home and a short week. And the offense of the Green Bay Packers is just simply better. I do think Don Jackson's going to be a very important part of this game, Alex. Your boy, I think he's going to have a good game.
Do you?
I do. And Ty Montgomery is going to be the X factor of this game, and I kind of expect this game to be maybe 21-17. So I think it'll be a little closer. I think we have it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have the Bears win. I'm sorry, the Packers winning this one. Also, I have the Bears losing only because they're abysmal on the road. They may still put points up. You know what I mean? But the Packers definitely need a comeback week off of a bad defensive performance against the Cowboys. And I think, there's going to be some bright spots on the offense tonight, hopefully. I hope, again, like you said, I hope Don Jackson's one of them because that'd be really awesome, in my opinion, to see my friend do that. But otherwise, I think I'll give it to the Packers. You know, they're starting to hit a bit of a stride. I mean, they were 3-1. You know what I mean? It's not like they were a 2-3 team. I mean, they had one loss. They weren't winning pretty, but
it's not like they're 1-5 or like 2-4 like that. Like they're over 500. This is still a good team.
Exactly, Jeremiah. Exactly. You're reading my mind. They're just finding weird ways to win, but they're winning ugly. So I'm going to give it to the Packers. Again, it'll be a wacky game, but we'll have to see how it goes tonight. And I know you guys will recap the game tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we will.
Yes, Jeremiah?
Maybe. I'm kidding. We will.
Okay.
We will.
All right. Well, we're going to take our first break. We can come back when we talk college football here in a second. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. We're going to talk some college football right now, right here, right now. And we're going to talk about the first game of today. That's 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I love when games start that early. It's so nice. We're talking Miami Hurricanes versus the Virginia Tech Hokies. This is going to be an interesting game. Both of these teams, at one point or another, were very up there in the national spotlight, Miami being ranked at one point. Currently, both teams are 4-2. One of them is 1-2 in the conference, that being the U, and the other is 2-1 in the conference, thus splitting who exactly is ahead of one another in the standings. But this will be an interesting game. Definitely I give the offensive. I don't know who I'd give the offensive. Give the advantage to. They're very similar offenses. Their quarterbacks almost have identical passing yardage numbers currently, almost identical attempts and incompletions, or attempts to completions. Not far off touchdown-wise. Virginia Tech has 7 more touchdowns than Kaya does. Brad Kaya, I even say his name. But
it's Kaya, right?
Yeah, it's Kaya, right? Yeah. That's what I thought. But this is going to be a close game. Most people give this one to the U, though. I think the U's defense is a little better than Virginia Tech's defense. What do you think? Anthony, I'll start with you as a fan of Miami.
Yeah, so Miami, they started off the year strong, but they weren't beating the best opponents, Appalachian State, FAMU, FAU, stuff like that. They were looking good. Beat Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech has that weird kind of like running offense where you basically just don't have to worry about them passing. Goes into Florida State, basically loses off of a blocked kick. Goes into North Carolina, I understand it was 2013, but they were losing the whole time. You had to come back at the end just to have a chance to win the game. Now you're going at Virginia, at Blacksburg, at a night game. So it's one of those things. It's not like you're playing on Saturday at like 12 o'clock where everyone's kind of prepared for it. You're going into an insane place over in Virginia Tech, and I would go with the Hurricanes. You're talking about Brad Kaya. Brad Kaya basically hasn't looked the same since he had to play those better teams, basically. Like, you can put up good numbers when the team you're going up against isn't as prepared as you. They're not as advanced scouting everything else as you are. The players aren't as good as you, because you take a look at Brad Kaya when he started playing teams that weren't FAMU and everything else like that, and the numbers drop off a little bit. He has against North Carolina, he didn't, basically after those games, he's thrown for less than 225 yards. So, 224 against North Carolina, 214 against Florida State. He was in the top 10. Miami was, they looked really good. Their defense looked good. They had 3 freshman linebackers who were performing better than people thought they would. Now with Brad Kaya, who's a junior, he's kind of regressed a little bit just in the sense of he went from somebody, because if you're in the top 10 and you're playing well as a quarterback, and somebody's going to be top in the, they look maybe like a top 10 pick. Now it's looking like he might come back just to kind of refine everything so that way he can be a higher pick. I would go with the Hurricanes because all that being said, they do look a little bit better. Yes, Virginia Tech did blow out the North Carolina Tar Heels, which is the team Miami lost to last week. But it is in Miami, and this is kind of the game where if they lose, they can spiral a little bit, because then after that they have at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's kind of Miami's – well, they used to be Miami's rival back when they both were good. So you don't want to basically go up 4-0, be a top 10 team, and then basically lose 3 in a row. So I would go with the Hurricanes just as a kind of stabilizing kind of game.
Yeah, that's tough to lose 3 games in a row before the Notre Dame game. And when this team did play North Carolina, they did lose to them. But remember, North Carolina, they were ranked at one point, even though they got blown out when this team was ranked. And Virginia Tech beat North Carolina when they were ranked. So I am going to go with the Hurricanes as well. I just feel like their offense a little more balanced. Virginia Tech looks like they're more of a passing team. The Hurricanes look like they can run the ball a little bit better. And their defense is just playing better, in my opinion. Even in those losses, it was within 1 score. Even though, like Anthony said, they were behind in that North Carolina game, that defense kind of kept them in the game, so to speak. I think if they hadn't had that block kick against Florida State, I think they would have won that game. But we don't know that anymore. As for Virginia Tech, this team was ranked last week after losing 31-17 to Syracuse. And Syracuse is a pretty bad team. And that's all I got to say about that. So, yeah, I'm going with the Hurricanes on this one. The U.
And you picked the U as well.
Yeah, yes. I picked the U. Like you were talking about with the running game, you got Walton and Yerby, both people who combined for over 1,000 yards. So it's one of those things that – actually exactly 1,000 yards. It's one of those things where since you're on the road, you kind of run the ball a little bit to kind of not let it, get blown out and everything else like that, kind of steady the game. Yeah, I'll go with the U.
All right. Let's move on to the second game of today. It's going to be tonight at 7:15 Pacific Standard Time. You're moving us to 10 o'clock game. That's a late game for fans over on the East Coast. It's BYU versus Boise State. Boise State currently ranked 14th in the nation. BYU, of course, one of the better teams in their conference as well. I feel like a lot of people are going to have to give this one to Boise State. You have Rippon at the quarterback position. For those of you who are, oh man, that name sounds familiar. It's because he is the nephew of Super Bowl winner Mark Rippon, former Washington State and Washington Redskins quarterback. He's leading the way there. Their leading passer, 12 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, playing pretty well. He helped lead them over a few different tough opponents this year to so far an undefeated record. I would imagine you have to give it to Boise on this one. Let's start with Jeremiah. Who do you have taking the W in this one?
I got Boise State, no question. Boise State, it looks like they're getting back to that primetime team that they were a few years back when they were blowing teams out. You go to their schedule here. In their close wins were against, pretty tough opponents. Like they beat Washington State week 2 in a close game. They beat Oregon State by 2 scores, even though Oregon State is a pretty bad team. They're better than Oregon, so I should tell you a little bit of something. And they did barely beat Colorado State, but Colorado State is a little better than last year. So I got to go with Boise State in this one. They're just a playing better offense. This team is one of the highest scoring offense in the nation. And as for BYU, they're kind of disappointing to me. I thought this team was going to be a lot better than what they've shown this year because I think they had 9 wins, and that was the first time they had so many wins in a while in the program. And I just felt like this team has just been a little bit of a disappointment coming off a huge year last season. So I got to go with Boise State in this one.
Okay, and moving on over to Anthony.
Yeah, so you look at BYU, and while they have a quarterback who's looking pretty good, you have nobody on the receiving end who's over 300 yards passing. They kind of spread the ball around a lot. And you look at it in the sense of who Boise State's actually beat. Like you said, they beat Washington State, who started off the year not so great, losing 2 in a row. But since then, they kind of rectified everything, beating Oregon, who Oregon's not Oregon, but still.
Well, it's Oregon State.
What's that? No, I'm talking about when they beat Oregon, when Washington State beat Oregon.
Okay.
They beat them 51-33, and back at that time, we didn't know for sure that Oregon wasn't Oregon. Yeah, we kind of still had hope that Oregon would be good. Then you beat Stanford, who was kind of beginning the kind of downhill of basically Stanford not being the same. But at the same time, when they played them, they were ranked 15th. So, you have those good wins for Washington State, and like I said, Boise State won the game that they played against them. Rippon's been pretty good, 1,622 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And to kind of basically make everything all equal, they're playing at Boise State, at the Blue Turf. So
that's a tough place to play in the nation.
It is a really tough time to play. And, it's also the time difference. 7 o'clock, that's a late game, everything else like that. But and it's not like big ways to go that far. But, yeah, I would go with Boise State. Like you said, they're looking a little bit better. They're looking kind of around the same when they had Chris Peterson a few years back. And after this, it doesn't really get that much harder for Boise State. I mean, you're playing Wyoming, you're playing San Jose State, Hawaii, UNLV, and the Air Force. So, the games, assuming they beat BYU, the schedule they have left gives them a good opportunity to go undefeated and probably not be in a, playoff system. But you'll probably get a good Sugar Bowl, something like that, something that'll look good on the resume for next year if they continue to do well.
Yeah, and going back to BYU, I did say that they're a little bit disappointing, but I do think BYU is 1 year away from being really good because if you look at those 3 straight losses, they lost by 1 point to Utah, 3 by UCLA, and then 3 by West Virginia. They could easily be undefeated right now. So I think they're 1 year away from being really good based on how they looked, even though I thought they would have played better or win a little bit more games by now.
Right.
But, yeah, I'm going to go with Boise State in this game.
All right, I believe you're in the majority there. All right, I agree with you on that one. We're going to take our second break, our last break. We'll come back, and we have the final drive coming to you. So just 1 second here. We'll be right back at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, and it's time for the final drive. And we're going to talk about, again, 3 pieces of news for each of us that kind of slipped through the cracks on the way through the NFL week and football week here in and on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. I will start today, and we will talk Roger Goodell. It's one of 2 things we have today to talk about of that man. This week it had come out that the NFL was suffering drop in ratings. Roger Goodell said on Wednesday that the league does not think that it has lost viewers despite a 10% drop in the ratings this season, which is significant for football if you ask me. I mean, I watch football every day it's on if I can. So speaking after the league's fall meetings in Houston, Goodell said it is important to not just get viewers back tuned in, but also to get them to stay tuned in. He said there's a lot of factors to be considered. We don't make excuses. We try to figure out what's changing. I'm kind of interested as to what is changing and what is causing people to lose interest in watching these games, whether the season hasn't been super competitive at the beginning here so far, if some people just, aren't loving. It doesn't seem any different to me. I watch football all day, every day, if I could. In my opinion, I think there's still a lot of interest in most every team in the league, let alone some of the things going on through certain teams or certain players in terms of issues with those players or injuries and so on, and so forth. I'm interested to know kind of what might have caused that drop in ratings, I suppose. Yeah,
so it could be. I mean, there's probably like 5 or 6 different reasons you could talk about. Kaepernick and everything happens with that. You talk about the fact that we kind of are aware now how bad those Thursday night football games are.
Yeah, a lot of the matchups aren't that great.
They are terrible. They need to get rid of it.
Even
Not necessarily
I
get
think,
rid of it.
I think they do.
It's just they don't go out of their
terrible.
They don't go out of their way to
adjust
set
it.
up. Yeah, they don't go out of their way to set up like the marquee matchups, but they try not to keep it horrible. It's just they've had a really bad streak of bad teams versus bad teams.
Like playing on a short week like that is tough for any.
But you can adjust
NFL
that. You
play.
can basically just have them get bye weeks a week before.
Yeah,
Like, there's ways
exactly.
around. Maybe not every week. Maybe you get a couple of weeks where that can't happen. But you can basically maneuver around that if you wanted to. But you get that. You get the fact that, election year. You get Kaepernick. You get the fact that you basically don't know what is pass interference and what is not pass interference, what it catches, because you get all these penalties all the time, which I heard people talking about. I think it was the Monday Night Football game. They were talking about all the penalties and how that kind of even rubs people the wrong way, because if you see a D pass and they don't catch the ball, you're basically just waiting for a flag the whole time, and that's not as good of a thing to do. You saw Richard Sherman come out earlier in the week and basically say he wants to make it a 15-yard penalty, the same way they do in college.
Yeah, whatever, Richard Sherman.
So, you get all these things that kind of add up, and maybe it's not one thing that leads to ratings dropping. Because also, the NFL got really, really big. You can only get so big before that.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking. And then again, too, Thursday has always had football. You have Thursday, on Thanksgiving, there's football. And there's three solid
it's because that was always one Thursday, a week until they started doing this Thursday night football game every single week. Starting,
I think they had it good.
Or a
I
couple
think
years
they
ago.
had it well set up when it was I think they started the Thursday night games in week 8 or something.
Yeah, I actually like that. I'm not a fan of doing it the whole season. It's just tough.
I just
to
looked
do that.
through the matchups from today through Thanksgiving, and they're not really.
They're not. That's why they're on NFL Network.
They're on CBS too.
No, I think this is the last one on CBS for a while.
I always forget when they do it, but
And they're still doing the thing where it's on Twitter too, so you can.
Yeah.
well, that's
stream it
I
that
like
way.
that.
I actually
And
like
could be
that.
ratings
Actually,
thing too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
that I actually like that.
But that could also lead to the ratings thing too, because why would you watch it when you can just go through Twitter and watch it that way?
Exactly. But that still counts as ratings in a sense because they're viewing it. But next week, Jacksonville at Tennessee. That'll be a barn burner. The following week, Atlanta at Tampa Bay. They do a good job of setting up these in-conference matchups at least. Week 10 is Cleveland at Baltimore, another in-conference matchup. But again, for people who aren't necessarily fans of either of those teams or a fan of the division, they don't care. New Orleans at Carolina next week after that.
Unless you have players on your fantasy team.
Exactly. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Thanksgiving. So, yeah, not necessarily great matchups by any stretch of the imagination. So I get what you mean from that.
Okay, well, back to the rating job here. Anthony kind of touched on it a little bit. You can go to a lot of things like Kaepernick, the election. I think baseball, I think could play a part, especially on Monday Night Football, particularly.
Starting on Tuesday, we have that what I call the golden period in which you have basketball, baseball, and football all happening at the same time. So,
and don't forget, hockey's also in season as well.
Exactly. It's it's the prime sports time of the year. It happens twice a year, near the tail end of the football season when baseball gets started and basketball's still going, and when football is just ending. Sometimes you can get that sweet spot. A lot of it doesn't quite work the same way, but you get what I mean. And right now we're about to enter, it's like the Twilight Zone. I love it.
Okay, but I know I do love it too. But anyways, getting back, the NFL has gotten so big, and they have ran into a little bit of PR issues recent years, with the Ray Rice thing, domestic violence and all that. So I kind of think that kind of plays a part in a way to some people. But I'm not buying that Kaepernick has made the ratings drop. I kind of think it may be the election because,
it's definitely something.
It's probably the Trump factor in a way. People are more paying attention to the election in NFL this year. That's kind of why I think the ratings are dropping.
I think it's probably a mix of a lot of things.
And then the Thursday night games have been kind of terrible so far this year. But it is a mix of a little bit of everything. You can't really pinpoint on one thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the next story. Anthony, go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, so you talked about Goodell. We're going to really quick about Goodell, then pivot to something else. So Goodell basically came out on Wednesday, kind of did a State of the Union kind of thing. Talked about a few things, talked about NFL players wanting to be role models, and for a little bit basically kind of singled out Odell Beckham Jr. a little bit, basically talking about it comes down to balancing a lot of issues. He told the reporters, professional standards we want to uphold. We want to believe that our players are role models and others look at them as youth level. So that's important for us to hold the standards, Basically saying, we want kids to not look at taunting penalties and do that when they're older, which, fine, I get everything else like that. I've just never really understood the fact that, let's say Odell Beckham scores a touchdown, and, okay, you're a Steeler fan. Okay, when Ben Roethlisberger was throwing touchdowns to Antonio Brown, what did you do?
I was pleased.
Yes, you were cheering. My point is, you were cheering. You were happy.
Well, I was happy.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if you do that, but the guy that actually scores a touchdown, we don't want them to celebrate, which is kind of weird. Like, the fans lose their minds whenever someone scores a touchdown, but the dude who actually does it, we can't let him do
There's
that.
a Chinese football league that allows celebration much more than the NFL
Yeah, I saw that
does.
a couple of days ago, yeah.
And those guys get intense.
Yeah.
They get going.
It's
impressive to watch.
They get more intense than Hingo McCringleberry there.
Yeah,
They do.
those-
So they legitimately
It's
get
on the same
into it.
level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
And then another kind of like minor story, because that was kind of one thing with Goodell. So Des Bryant basically, he said that Ezekiel Elliott will break the rookie rushing records. He thinks he's going to get 2,000 yards, basically become the first dude to get anywhere near that since Eric Dickerson back in '83 with 1808. Then he also cut his finger while he was slicing carrots, called that like extremely screaming minor, like doesn't matter, I just kind of, wasn't doing the best. Des Bryant's been out for a little bit with a knee injury, hasn't had the best season. Now he kind of has this little thing, just kind of little weird things for Des Bryant, just kind of keeps kind of going south a little bit for Des Bryant.
Man, oh Des.
Throw
Someone
up the X
who,
and cut yourself.
I'm not saying this, but he might get traded.
You just said it. Oh, wait.
Yeah, him and Romo might get traded. That's all I'm going to say. But anyways.
That's an interesting assumption.
Yeah. I'm assuming that. I'm saying it could happen. It could happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, go ahead, Jeremiah.
Okay. Well, news that came out today, Richie Incognito, who was suspended for 8 games, I think in 2014, before joining the Buffalo Bills, he said that Jonathan Martin, who is former teammate for the Miami Dolphins, has tried to reach out to him, tried to speak a few times, but Incognito said, I have nothing to say. And if you guys don't remember, Jonathan Martin was kind of in a bullying scandal with Richie Incognito as the culprit and all that. All I got to say, man, Richie Incognito, this is a D-bag move, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right, you're jumping.
Yeah.
You're going straight for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, I understand where he's coming from in the sense of I'm sure he kind of has just passed it. He's done with it, I guess. But, at least talk to the guy.
Yeah, you had to talk to him because Jonathan Martin, he posted on his Facebook multiple times about possibly committing suicide. And that's not a funny thing. I'm not going to say, I had people that kind of almost did that. But that's a very sensitive subject to me. But, man, you got to try to talk to the guy, at least something. Jonathan Martin, who was constantly harassed in this, trying to reach out to you to make amends, and Incognito's not even going to have it. Yeah, I don't like that at all, and that's Bush League to me.
Okay, and Anthony, do you have anything on that?
I understand, wanting Incognito to talk to Jonathan Martin. They were boys when they were over in Miami. Offensive linemen kind of flock together. They're kind of, they kind of separate everything out in football, the receivers, the linemen, all that stuff. So they were friends there, and then just basically once everything went south, with that, and the Bullygate, everything else like that, he basically had nothing for Jonathan Martin because basically ruined his career in Miami. And yes, everything that happened with Jonathan Martin, you would like him just kind of be like, hey, just kind of talk to him, you're good. Everything else, doesn't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. But assuming Jonathan Martin, I think it was 2014, so it was 2 years ago, assuming everything's okay with his mental health and everything else like that, what do you want Incognito to talk to him about?
I don't know, just to, make amends or something. I'm not saying they don't have to be friends again, but at least,
But he says I have nothing to say. It's not that he's saying, I hate the dude. He's just look at his, whatever. Just kind of, not dwell on that old stuff. Just kind of yeah, we're just going to move past
Which
it.
I completely understand. He doesn't want to go back to the past, but I feel like, he kind of has to do right by trying to, make amends or something. I'm not saying, they have to go out for coffee and talk for, a half hour. At least, give each other a phone call. But, like you did say, Richie Incognito is – I'm not saying he's completely responsible for ruining Jonathan Martin's career, Jonathan Martin was kind of falling off a little bit as an offensive lineman.
There's a lot of things with that whole situation.
Yeah. So I'm not putting Jonathan Martin's career, as Incognito's fault, but I do think Incognito has to try to put a better effort, so to speak, because Martin's making an effort to do this.
I like that. That's a good insight. That's I get you on that one. I agree with you. Good job, Jeremiah.
Thank you.
Well, you'll be back tomorrow. Anthony will join you. I think Ben will be here as well. You guys will recap tonight's football games, whether it's college, whether it's NFL, and you'll do your previews for the Sunday stretch of games as well. We have a London game.
Yes, we do.
LA Rams featuring LA Rams and the New York Giants over there in London, England.
The top two market teams going across the pond.
Yeah, but we can't give the NFL. We can't give London good teams. We can't give them the Patriots. We can't give them.
You can't.
The Vikings.
They did get the Patriots 1 year, but they put the Bucks that year.
We all know they're going to get the Jaguars or something.
Oh, that's already happened. The Jaguars
get them all the time. You know what I mean?
I know, and then the Rams, I think they have a game in China coming up soon, I think in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's the Mexico City game that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't ever get. I mean, the Steelers played the Vikings a couple years ago in England. They lost that game, actually. Adrian Pearson went crazy.
He does that.
Yeah, when he was doing well. He did horrible this year, but that's how it is. Anyways, though, it's time to get out of here. As always, like to thank you for listening. Like I said, these two will be back tomorrow, joined by Ben, and they will do all the recapping and previewing from the week of and the week to come. We'd like to thank you guys for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. As always, I'm Alex.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Jeremiah.
And I will see you guys on Monday.
I will be back tomorrow, guys.
I'll be back tomorrow.
And you guys have a good rest of your day and enjoy your football tonight. And see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.